Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Banacha Yamunatira Banacha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihar Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihar Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Can I get a yoga block or something? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is not going. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Devim. Save it. Forget. Too many things on my mind. This is not working. It says waiting for ISKCON TV. Which verse is it? 387. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Purana Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chikada Bhagavan Rishi Nishaya Saya Lokasya Danyam Shastayanam Mahat. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 8, Text number 7. Proktam Kilaitad Bhagavatattamena Nivritti Dharma Virataya Tena Sanat Kumaraya Sa Chaha Prishta Sankyayan Nayanga Jitta Vrataya Proktam Kilaitad Bhagavatattamena Nivritti Dharma Virataya Tena Samat Kumarai Sahachaha Prahishta Sankyayanayanga Jitavritaya Proktam Kilaitad Bhagavatattamena Nivritti Dharma Virataya Tena Sanat Kumaraya Sachaha Prishta Sankyayana Nayananga Drita Vritaya. Still says waiting.
Minus thing. This one.
What's going on?
This is not the one.
Huh?
This is not the one. This one.
Changing.
Nivritti dharma viratayatena. Sanat Kumaraya Sachaha Prishtaha.
Matananayanga Drita.
Sankhyayanayanga Drita Vrataya.
Sankhyayanayanga Drita Vrataya. Soktam Pilaitad Bhagavatat Tatamena. Nivritti Dharma Viratayatena. Sanat Kumaraya Sachaha Prishta. Sankhyayanayanga Drita Vrataya. Proktam Kalaitad Bhagavattamena. Nivritti Dharma Viratayatena. Sanat Kumaraya Sachaha Prishta. Sankhyayanayanga Drita Vrataya. Proktam Kilaitad Bhagavattamena. Nivritti Dharma Viratayatena. Sanat Kumaraya Sachaha Prishta. Sankhyayanayanga Drita Vrataya. Proktam was said. Kila. Certainly. Etat. This. Bhagavatattamena. By Lord Sankarshan. Nivritti. Renunciation. Dharma Abhirataya. One who has taken up this religious vow. Tena. By him. Sanat Kumaraya. Unto Sanat Kumara. Sa. He. Cha. Also. Aha. Said. Prishta. When inquired of. Sankhyayanayanga. Unto the great sage Sankhyayana. Anga. My dear Vidura. Drita Vrataya. One who has taken such a vow. Lord Sankarshan thus spoke the purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumara, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumar also, in his turn, when inquired by the Sankhyayana Muni, explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarshana. I repeat that? That's pretty far out, huh? Bhagavatam is very ancient. Lord Sankarshan thus spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumara,
great sage Sanat Kumar,
who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumara also, in his turn, when inquired of by Sankyayana Muni, explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarshan. Purport. This is the way of the Parampara system. Although Sanat Kumara, the well-known great saintly Kumara, was in perfect stage of life, still he heard the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Sankarshan. Similarly, when he was questioned by Sankyayana Rishi, he spoke to him the same message he had heard from Lord Sankarshan. In other words, unless one hears from the proper authority, one cannot become a preacher. In devotional service, therefore, 2 items out of the 9, namely hearing and chanting, are most important. Without hearing nicely, one cannot preach the message of Vedic knowledge. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksuramilitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sajjadatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesatarane Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnave Vyo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Trishe Namaha Panchatatmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhakta Bhataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vande Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodato, Gododaya Pushpavanto, Chitro Samdo Tamonado. Hearing and chanting, Shravanam Kirtanam, that has, no matter what other, we can do any of the 9 processes, but Prabhupada always said the hearing and chanting should be there if you're worshiping, if you're doing deity worship, should be hearing something. And there's always mantras, for everything. So it's supposed to be whatever we're doing. If you're sweeping the floor, you should be chanting Hare Krishna or something. If you're whatever we're doing, we should either be hearing or chanting, or hearing and chanting. Kirtan means hearing and chanting. So that's the perfect thing. We hear the singer and then we repeat. So the singer sings and then he hears, and the other devotees hear and then they chant. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam is not something that just happened at Vasudev. Vasudev did all this Vedic, and he was just dividing up all the Vedas. And then Narada Muni taught him Srimad Bhagavatam. because he wasn't feeling satisfied, even though he'd done more than anyone else had ever done, more tapasya, more writing, and great service, because he was knowing in Kali Yuga, it would, yeah, so he divided up the one Veda, was only one before. All the sections were there, but the rishis were so intelligent, they could just, like a Google search, they could just find whatever they want with the memory. But so he divided it up into different sections, and then he handed those over to different disciples. But he wasn't satisfied even after all that. And then Narada told him, you have not fully delineated and just written anything that's just only glorifying the Supreme Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam, the beautiful pastimes of the beautiful Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he made the Bhagavatam. And sorry, Sukadeva Goswami left home right away, but Vyasadeva wanted him back. And so he was composing the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he sent some of his disciples into the forest where he thought Sukadeva must be meditating, and he would recite these verses, and Sukadeva heard them and he got attracted, so he came back and learned Srimad Bhagavatam from his father. And then when he spoke Srimad Bhagavatam at Naimisharanya, Vyasadeva was there. He was sitting down listening. And he said that Sukadeva made it so much better. Like here it says, when Sanat Kumara repeated it, it becomes better. So Sukadeva repeated it, become better. And then so many commentaries have come down on the Srimad Bhagavatam, and each one just makes it more relishable and more deep, and then down to Srila Prabhupada especially with his purports, because he made it available for everybody. By putting it in English, he made it available to be translated into so many other languages, because people couldn't, not very many people can read Sanskrit or understand it, what to speak of understanding it. So now we have the great fortune of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's all over the world and being distributed, so many, amazing how many people are taking Srimad Bhagavatam. I just read a Sunday feast in Atlanta, they sold 3 sets every Sunday. Chaitanya Charitamrita sets, Bhagavatam sets. So people are, now we have to deeply read it so that when we really relish it, and we can inspire other people and help them to read it and enter into it. It's very good just to have the book. We always tell people that on Sankirtan, I won't read it. And it's okay. This book is spiritual power. And even if you don't read it, if it's just the vibration of this book in your house is going to purify your house. Lord Chaitanya said that any house that has Srimad Bhagavatam in it, nothing inauspicious can happen there. So people should want it in their house, because they're all worried, to keep away all the evil spirits and all the different. But if you read it, it's much better. Like, we want to distribute it, but we want to read it also. Prabhupada, he said both. Sometimes he'd hear the book distribution reports and say, well, why aren't they reading my books? Then he'd hear someone wants to just read all day, and why aren't they studying my books? And why aren't they distributing my book? He wanted a balance. And, we get asked a lot, especially when we're dealing with grihastas, how can you balance your spiritual life and your job, serious consideration. Even brahmacharis, how can I, there's been cases of, devotees live in the temple and they get so much service that they don't chant anymore. And they never have time to read the book or go to class. They're so busy doing service. Then it becomes not really service. So it is today Nityananda Trayodasi, and everybody might have a little time because there's no breakfast, and there's a lot of classes online by all kinds of, devotees from all different angles, the glories of Lord Nityananda. So it's unlimited. His childhood, and just in that, is a fascinating thing. Then when he left home, he traveled for 20 years with the sannyasi, visited all the holy places. And that's when he met Madhavendra Puri, and that was, both of them became overwhelmed at seeing the other one's Krishna Prema. And they just went wild and dancing and chanting and embracing and falling unconscious for hours and getting up again. And all the devotees that were there, they were just bewildered watching. They'd never seen anything like it. Rolling on the ground, embracing, flooding the ground with tears. Then he got initiated by Lakshmi Pati Tirtha, who was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. And then he eventually went back to Vrindavan, and he was living there. And he was actually waiting for Lord Chaitanya to start the Sankirtan movement. And someone was asking him, "Where did you come from?" And this might have been after. Somehow he realized that Lord Chaitanya started the movement. He told people, "I've been all over every holy place, but I never found Krishna. I only saw the place, and the altars were covered. And I don't know why it was." And then some wise person told him, "Because Krishna's gone to Navadvip." And he started this Sankirtan movement. So then he became very happy. Of course, he was happy in Vrindavan. He was living with the cowherd boys, just drinking milk. And there's a place there, Nityananda Vat. Banyan tree used to sit under. There's a temple. And it's also the place where Krishna fixed Radharani's hairs. Quite, So he went to Navadvip. And then Lord Chaitanya, he told the devotees, "There's a great personality coming to Navadvip. He came to me in a dream. And he was going around in a big chariot, and he was speaking Hindi, and he was asking everybody, 'Is this Nimai Pandit's house?' But nobody could understand what he was saying, because Bengal at that time, nobody spoke Hindi. And then, so Lord Chaitanya said, "I know he's here in Navadvip, and you go find him. Haridas and Srivas, you go find him." So they, of course, went out. 9 hours, they went everywhere. And they came back and they said, "We can't find any great personality anywhere. We've looked everywhere. We've looked, on the outskirts. We've looked in every home." And Lord Chaitanya laughed. He said, "You don't know how to find a great personality. I will show you." So he took him right away to Nandanacharya's house. And if you've been to Mayapur, that's very close to our temple. So Lord Chaitanya's house, it's not very far. And there was Nityananda. And when they saw each other, it was another, even more intense than the Madhavendra Puri one. They were both crying and dancing and chanting and falling unconscious. And Lord Chaitanya wanted to show everybody the greatness of Nityananda. So he asked Srivas to recite some verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. And he recited a quite long verse about the beauty of Krishna and Vrindavan and Nityananda, when he heard that, he just fell down in ecstasy, and tears were flooding. His clothes were completely wet, and he's rolling on the ground. And Lord Chaitanya said, "Go on chanting." That went on for a long time, and then somehow Nityananda went to stay at Shiva's house. And so that many pastimes there. He was living just like a child because he was avadutta. So nobody really knew where he came from and, what his caste was or where his family was or anything. He had a water pot and a danda, but he wasn't a sannyasi. He was a brahmachari danda or something. He used to carry the danda for the sannyasi that he traveled with. And so he lived just like a baby. That Malini, the old wife of Srivas, would have to feed him. And he would do a lot of avadutta kind of things. Lord Chaitanya would try to correct him and they would joke together. And sometimes he'd be naked. Lord Chaitanya would take off his turban or something and put it on him and tell him to get dressed. And it was very transcendental, to say the least. So, and then they started the all-night kirtans. And when Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda danced together, they would both leap so high as sometimes they'd be like floating in the air. Their feet were above the heads of the other devotees, and then crash down, and it would be like an earthquake. And sometimes Sachimata would see that, and she would pray that Lord Chaitanya didn't break all his bones. And Lord Chaitanya would try to touch the feet of Nityananda, and he would jump back, and he'd try to touch the feet of Lord Chaitanya, and like that. Devotees used to do that in kirtan. I haven't seen it for a while, but neither one of them could succeed in touching the feet of the other one. Nityananda would often just stay right behind Lord Chaitanya because sometimes in ecstasy he'd fall backwards. So to protect him from falling back on the ground, he would stay behind him like this and then protect him from falling over. And then they started the outdoor Sankirtan, and every day they would both go out. So they both appeared on the horizon of Gaudadesh. It's the second verse of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodato Gododaya Pushpavanto Chitro Samdo Tamoda. They appeared together just like the sun and the moon appearing at the same time to dissipate the dense darkness of Kali Yuga. So Nityananda did a few, seemingly miraculous things there at Shiva's house. One time a crow came and took away a ghee pot or something, part of Shiva's puja paraphernalia. And Malini was really worried because Shivas would sometimes get very angry about things. And Nityananda just cried out, "Crow, bring that back." And the crow came back with it and left it. So that was considered quite a few crazy things. Then Nityananda was worldly. He knew the world. And when he and Chaitanya, they were traveling to Shantipur, to Advaita's house. And somewhere along the way, someone told him there's one Grihastha sannyasi here, you should meet him. That's a little bit of a contradiction, but is some kind of, not sampradaya, but some sort of a cult. And they were, in order to, get initiated in that cult, you had to drink wine and have illicit sex and do everything sinful. So they went to his house. This is the causeless mercy of the Lord. And they took some fruit And this guy kept saying, should I get some Ananda? Do you want some Ananda? And Lord Chaitanya said, didn't know what he was talking about. And Nityananda, he finally asked, and Nityananda said, he means whiskey. And then they ran out of the house, jumped in the Ganga, swam to Shantipur. But he gave Lord Chaitanya a blessing. He said, I bless you that you will enjoy, sense gratification, material life, like anything, because he was attracted to the beauty of this young boy, And Lord Chaitanya said, why don't you bless me with Krishna Prema? And why are you, and he was thinking he must be polluted by this Avaduta that he's with here, and he doesn't know the value, you can't get Krishna Prema until you enjoy all kinds of sense gratification. But they're so merciful, they went to his house and actually accepted some fruit prasadam. Then we have, everybody knows these pastimes, but Nityananda is so merciful. Lord Chaitanya is Namo Mahavadhanaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Tushinam. He's Patita Pavana, Savior of the most fallen, the most merciful Lord. He doesn't kill any demons, he benedicts everybody. But Nityananda is more merciful. The servant of the Lord can become even more merciful than the Lord, be empowered by him. So they would go to Puri, and one year Lord Chaitanya told Nityananda, only you can preach in Bengal. You have to go back and preach in Bengal. Don't come to Puri anymore to visit me, just preach in Bengal. So he took a few devotees with him and he went back to Bengal. And he was seeking out the most fallen. Lord Chaitanya's disciples were coming from so-called high-class backgrounds. Sarvabhauma was the greatest scholar in India, and Rupa and Sanatan were big government people, but they were also born in Saraswat Brahmin families, and they were great devotees, actually. They were always, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, and even though they were supporting all the Brahmanas and in all of that area. Nityananda, of course, the classic is Jagai and Madai, to show his causeless mercy. And everybody knows that one, but it's the most relishable. It's the favorite Leela besides Nrsimhadev of ISKCON, I think, isn't it? Jagai and Madai. Devotees really good at that drama. To play Jagai and Madai, the devotees are very good at that. Huh? Yeah, they don't have to act, they just act naturally. And even we did it once, Rabindra Sarupa's Jagai or Madai. It was really funny to see him acting like a drunkard, crazy man. But and Nityananda, Madai clobbered him with the clay pot. They're heavy, the clay pots. And there was a lot of blood. They said his blood was all over his clothes. And Lord Chaitanya became so angry, he came with chakra. And Jagai and Madai were cowering and afraid. And Nityananda, when Madai did that, Jagai said, you shouldn't have done that. Why did you do that? It's not nice. And he's just an avaduta. And so Nityananda told Lord Chaitanya, wait. Jagai helped me. He tried to stop Madai from hitting me anymore. And and you promised in this age you're not going to kill anyone. So Lord Chaitanya hesitated, and he said, he embraced Jagai and said, you helped Nityananda, so I bless you. You'll get all mercy. because Nityananda is so dear to Lord Chaitanya. He said, Nityananda, but Madai, and then Madai was looking, he said, what about me? Why don't you bless me? And he said, I can't help you, You've hurt Nityananda, and Nityananda's body is more dear to me than my own body. And this is a horrible thing you've done. So Madai was crying, and what can I do? What can I do? And he said, you have to take shelter of Nityananda. Only he can help you. So he did, touched the feet of Lord Nityananda and begged, and Nityananda, of course, forgave him and blessed him. So they both, Jagai and Madai, got this, caused this mercy. And they became great devotees. And Lord Chaitanya told everybody, nobody should ever talk about their past activities. Now they've changed. So after some time, Madai found Lord Nityananda, and he approached him and he said, I need a special favor from you. First, he just glorified Nityananda, but he was saying, he listed off all these previous incarnations and how you saved so many demons, and what about me? And finally he said, I want this special favor. It's amazing prayers, actually. It goes on, and surprising how someone had been so degraded knows all these things, This is special mercy also from the heart. And they were raised in a Brahmin family, so they heard all these things. So he said, I've offended so many people, and I want you to give me a special benediction, because it's so many, I can't find them, I don't know who they are. I want you to give me a special benediction that I can find all the people I've offended and beg forgiveness. And Nityananda laughed. He said, that's not possible. He said, it's too many. So I'll tell you what to do. He said, you should make a nice bathing ghat at the Ganga. And then you should serve everyone who comes to take bath. And you should beg everyone for forgiveness. So he worked very hard, by himself, dug out a ghat and carried the stones and, a bathing ghat, and fixed it up very nice so people could, we know it's very nice if you go to the rivers in India that you don't have to slog through the mud and everything, and you can walk down very nicely. And he would take everybody's clothes and take care of them and help everybody and beg forgiveness from everybody. And he was chanting 128 rounds every day. He became very famous. And of course, Nityananda's motivation for approaching him, the first time when they heard the noise, big ruckus and a little bit in the distance, and Nityananda said, what is that? And they said, don't go there, don't go there. Everybody said, don't, it's Jagai and Madai, they're very dangerous. Don't go there for sure. And he said, oh, and they described the sinful rascals they were. He said, oh boy, if I can make them devotees, then this will really glorify Lord Chaitanya. Everybody will know who is Lord Chaitanya. So he went and he approached them, and they just shouted at him and started chasing him. So they had to run away. And Jagai and Madai were so drunk, they tried to chase them, but they couldn't, they got lost. And they started fighting with each other on the way, and they escaped. I think they jumped in the Ganga too with their clothes on. And Haridas was saying, you always do this. You're getting us in trouble all the time, You're crazy. And we have to run away, and I'm an old man and I can't run like this, And Nityananda said, don't blame me. It's your master's order. Blame him, it's not my idea to do this. He told us to do this. And Haridas said, never, ever go to those guys again, you know. But Nityananda, he went back and he told about it, you know, because Lord Chaitanya would ask for the report. How many books today? How much? and they told him, we met these guys, and Advaita said, oh yeah, I know them. You know, these are born in a good Brahmin family, but they become dacoits and drunkards. But Lord Chaitanya said, don't worry, you'll meet them again and you can, you know, save them. So again, after I don't know how long, they met them. And Nityananda went again. I don't know how Haridas went that time or not. And that's when Madai said, what is your name? He said, my name is Avaduta. And he got really mad at that. And he just hit him over the head. And the blood was very much, you know. So that's Nityananda. Later he came back to Navadvip and carried out the mission of Lord Chaitanya. He moved away from Navadvip. Almost all the devotees left Navadvip. So he lived in a place called Kardaha, and he was married. His marriage was a very amazing event also. He somehow he decided to get married, and he had a dream about these two daughters, the daughter of, who was Janava, the daughter of this, forget his name. And this man knew, you know, who Nityananda was and everything. But when Nityananda went and said, I'd like to marry your daughter, he said no. He got bewildered. And he was thinking, you know, we don't know your caste, and we don't know where you come from, and we have to do astrology, and we have to do all these things. Even though previously he knew who Lord Nityananda was and was glorifying him. He fell back into the Varnashram, you know, thing. So Nityananda was disappointed. Then there was, Janava was in the other room, and when she heard Nityananda wanted to marry her, she was really happy. And she just fell unconscious. And then when he left, she was unconscious and nobody could revive her. No doctor knew what to do. And somebody told him, you must have offended some great soul, you know, and he realized. And then somehow it got together and Nityananda came back, and then they had this incredible wedding. We won't go into all the details of the wedding. You can look it up online. And then he asked for Dakshin. He said, I want to marry your other daughter also. So everybody was very happy about that. So he took the two girls and stayed in that house for some time, and then went to wherever he went. So when he was living as a householder, he was very opulent somehow or other, and described he was dressed very opulently with rings, and like when Raghunath saw him at Panihati, he had ring on every finger and necklaces and ankle bells and crowns and, you know, jewels everywhere, silk cloth. And so he had children, but they would all die right away. And Janava had no children. It was the Vasudha had the children. So finally one son was born, and he didn't die. That was Virabhadra. And he grew up, and he was considered like an incarnation of Lord Chaitanya. And he was initiated by Janava Mata, his auntie, or his, you know, the wife, the sister of his mother. And he became a very, very powerful preacher. said he spread the chanting of Gaur-Nitai, the names of Gaur-Nitai, all over the world. And Nityananda, then one time he went back to Puri, and Lord Chaitanya acted very angry. Actually, he was very happy to see him, but he said, "I told you to stay in Bengal and not come back. You know, you have to preach there. They're the most fallen people." So he not only Jagai Madai, one gang of dacoits. I just heard Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj saying that was his favorite. Mine too. This gang of dacoits that Lord Nityananda liberated, made into great devotees. He just preached to everybody and powerfully spread the message of Lord Chaitanya all over. So it's I try, you know, we love to hear about Nityananda. When I got initiated, Prabhupada gave my name, and then he said, Kavichandra was a great devotee of Nityananda. Yeah, I said, I have to do Sankirtan. I have to dedicate my life, I thought. So please bless me that I could start. But in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's 3 Kavichandras, and they're all followers of Lord Nityananda. So I don't know which one he's talking about. But anyway, Lord Nityananda is so important in our movement. And Prabhupada, just like Lord Nityananda, took the mission of Lord Chaitanya so seriously that he could be even more powerful than Lord Chaitanya. And Prabhupada took that also, and he's obviously so much empowered by Lord Nityananda. Prabhupada, in LA, when they installed the Gaur-Nitai deities, Prabhupada was extremely blissful that day. And so when the doors opened, and for the first darshan, Prabhupada I was standing right behind him, but I didn't see him walk or anything. Just all of a sudden he was in front of the deities. And then he gave a talk and he said, we want to enter the dancing party of Radha and Krishna. To do that, we need the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. To get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, we have to have the mercy of Nityananda. Then he said, and to get the mercy of Nityananda, we have to get the mercy of Jagai and Madai. My interpretation, and I couldn't find that anywhere on the recordings. And at one point I started thinking, well, maybe I didn't, I just had some hallucination. But then I heard Giriraj Swami tell that he heard it also. So that means we have to go out and meet these Jagais and Madais, and we have to try to give them mercy. Prabhupada said, at that time there were only 2 Jagai and Madai. Now everyone is Jagai and Madai. He said, and I am not bragging. I don't want to brag. He said, but all of my disciples are Jagai and Madai. And maybe you're not. I don't know. Huh? I heard Sri Maharaj saying, Prabhupada went to the people he was dealing with had one regulator principle, was to break all the other regulators. Although many of the devotees that joined Prabhupada were vegetarian. Umapati Swami said whenever Prabhupada wasn't speaking and they weren't with him, they just talked about LSD and stuff. That's why Prabhupada tried to stuff them with prasadam, and make them so they wouldn't go out and eat and do all kinds of other things. But very quickly, people gave up all these things, Gargamuni was young and he heard all the other devotees and he went to Prabhupada and did you think I should try LSD? Prabhupada said no. So he never did. But he was a young boy and wholesome. But so that's Prabhupada, definitely represents Lord Nityananda. We have to take shelter of Lord Nityananda because we have to, everywhere we look, there's jug eyes and mud eyes. And it's considered normal now. It's just, drunkard and meat eaters, and it's essential, right? These things you think you need, you can't live without it. So we can pray to Lord Nityananda. He's appeared here. Now, I don't know if he's going to stay there. Or anybody? Huh? Just for today? Somehow or other, we got to have Nityananda, but because we have to have a separate altar then for Gaur Nitai. For Lord Chaitanya can be with Radha and Krishna, but not Nityananda. Nityananda is Balaram, and he only wants to serve Lord Chaitanya, just like Balaram only wanted to serve Krishna. And he's all powerful, same as Krishna. He appeared about 10 years before Lord Chaitanya. And they weren't born in the same family that time or anything. They didn't meet till after the Sankirtan movement started. And so Lord Chaitanya was maybe 20 years old. Nityananda, when he was in South India and he heard the Shaivites and the Vaishnavas arguing, he just laughed. Thought it was stupid to be arguing like that. And but the Buddhist, he kicked on the face. He didn't appreciate the Buddhist. So there's no breakfast today, right? Fasting till noon. Well, some people might think fasting till noon is fasting till death. I don't know. It's no big deal. We were doing some in Tokyo. We'd go to the vegetable market and get so much stuff and then go and sell it cheap, And there would be so many empty boxes. And the devotees couldn't keep up. And I said, well, why don't you just give one of these homeless guys a few dollars? And so this one homeless guy gave him $5 or something. And he worked really hard and he kept everything really pucka and first class, the Japanese. And they let him stay at the temple. He would sleep in the van. And the devotee told him, well, today's Ekadasi, so we're fasting or something. And he said, well, many times I never eat for a couple of days, he said. You just find a place to sleep, and then there was some kind of well, he'd get a bottle of water and just walk around all day because there's no place for them to sit around, But most people, anyway, Nityananda is very merciful. So Krishna would fast till midnight, but Nityananda is only till noon. Lord Chaitanya is till sunset. But they're together. There's no difference. They have the same mission. But Lord Chaitanya is the most merciful. Nityananda is more merciful. It's inconceivable. There's no limit to the mercy of Lord Nityananda, how far he'll go to save anyone and everyone. So therefore we're all here. And therefore we have this gigantic movement that Prabhupada created by just depending on Lord Nityananda. And Prabhupada wanted us to, worship Gaur Nitai together, the inaugurators of the Sankirtan movement. So any comments or questions? We have more. What's the next class? What, at night there's a class? Yeah, after RT. Huh? Going to be a Abhishek? Okay. But more kirtan and Harinam. Okay. And lots of books distributed. Everybody going for Harinam? Everybody, all the ladies, you know. Huh? 40 in 2 hours. Pretty good. That's not impossible. No, you know, come on. Mahotsav so like 10 at a time, sometimes. One person. Huh? Yeah, we got to think big, you know. Why take only one? Take 10. Okay, anyone have a question or any comment about any realizations about Lord Nityananda? I know if I get my head a little straight for book distribution, if I pray to Lord Nityananda that no one can help them, I can't do anything, only you can help these people, all of a sudden it starts to happen. Because he's in everyone's heart and we got to take shelter of him. All right. Yes, sir.
Haribo. Raj, can you please say something about the connection between Lord Nityananda and the spiritual master? Because we know the spiritual master is like a representative of the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu.
I didn't follow.
Can you say something more about the connection between the Guru and Nityananda?
Well, Nityananda is the original guru because he's Balaram, the Adi Guru. And I just heard an esoteric thing about that. Prabhupada says that the spiritual master represents either Nityananda or Radharani, but actually it's both. But different levels are, you know, given. But Nityananda is the original guru, Balaram, so is original everything. You know, everything is coming from him, but so that Nityananda gives the guru, actually, I guess. And guru is also merciful because he's instructing and trying to help all the fallen people, risking his life in many ways, taking karma and everything. But Nityananda is protecting. Nityananda is inconceivable. That's, you know, Nityananda is always blissful. So we represent him, and we're all supposed to be gurus. Everyone is supposed to be a guru, teacher, guiding, trying to get people to know about Krishna, trying to get the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Guru Tattva is a big discussion. It's called a Chintya Tattva. So devotees go on and on and on saying we've got to find out more, we've got to think more, but you know, it's inconceivable. But you know, we're all gurus. Vartma production is it? It first introduces you to Krishna. So devotees who go out and are stay back and meet people or preach or talk in any way. They're all introducing so many people to Krishna. In Shiksha, all devotees are teaching somebody, right? By a good or bad example. We learn from both. And parents are teaching their children about Krishna. Like, who's that devotee last night? The little boy, the mridanga player. Yeah, the little boy of Vrindavan Kirtan. The kid doesn't, he has no interest in school or anything. He just Kirtan. 7 years old was his birthday yesterday. So, and then there's a lot of them like that coming with the parents want, when I was in Vrindavan and so many parents would come up to me with their babies and say, please bless my baby to be a great devotee preacher, So when the parents are thinking like that, and thinking like that even conception time, or, we're going to have something really happening. And we might be able to take birth again as one of those kids, or, I'm sure some of them were Prabhupada's disciples before that somehow didn't make it. But Nityananda is leading the way for us, because we can't get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya without Nityananda. So you need the guru, to get the mercy of Nityananda, to connect. That's all I can say at the moment. The Dandabats is full of both transcribed and spoken lectures on Nityananda today. And it's very nice. It's one advantage of all this technology. So we can have many, many gurus, many Shiksha gurus. One Diksha guru, but we need, the more advanced one comes, the more Shiksha gurus you can have. The more you can learn from everybody. So thank you very much. And take advantage of this extra time and no breakfast. And serve prasadam at 1 o'clock. And I got lots of books ready to go. A few cookies. So Nityananda Mahajan, Godruna Kanana, Nityananda Mahajan. He started the Namhata movement, started from Godruma, Dweep. To reach out to everybody. Bhaktivinoda picked up on it. And now in Bengal, there's something like 10,000 Namhata groups. Bengal and Orissa. I went on a Ganga safari. And, so many times there's a big group on the shore waiting to greet us, these Namhata groups. They're all over the place. And it's just growing like anything, especially since the installation of the Panchatattva. And then it really took off. So Nityananda is there in Mayapur, and he's everywhere. And we all need to take shelter if we want to succeed. We need his mercy to, to forgive all these crazy people and just have unlimited desire. That way we glorify Lord Chaitanya. And like Nityananda, if Chagai and Madai would be, saved, then that will glorify Lord Chaitanya, and that's what happened. When Nityananda went to Puri, he went in the temple and he just went right on the altar and embraced Lord Balaram. So the Chokidars, were trying to get him down, and the Chokidar tried to grab him, and Nityananda just threw him off like all the way across the temple. Then they left him alone. Anyway, there's so many things I can say more tonight that, that start remembering all the rasas between Nityananda and Chaitanya are very interesting. And especially between Advaita. Because Nityananda is Mahavishnu, Mahavishnu is Advaita, but Mahavishnu is an expansion from Balaram. So they're very, very close, and they had this, and they would talk and like they're fighting and insulting each other, and nobody could understand except Lord Chaitanya couldn't understand anything about their conversations. But they were actually glorifying each other. Advaita said, I don't know what's going to happen to me eating with this other Dutta who nobody knows where he came from, and I'll lose my caste as a Brahmin. And Nityananda just looked at him and said, you're a Mayavadi. So it looked, it sounded like but they were glorifying each other. And Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya was saying, this is too much, I can only eat some soup. And Nityananda was complaining, I'm hungry, I've been fasting, and this is nothing, even though there were hundreds of preparations. And, gigantic whole banana, we get a banana leaf cut up like this. They served on whole leaf, piled up with rice and so many things. All right? Okay, Nityananda Mahajan ki jai. And Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. This is personified Srimad Bhagavatam.